Hey guys, what is up? This is Zavro, aka Eric's Art Games. Uh, and today I'm going to bring you guys a tutorial on, you know, how to make a low poly Lord of the Rings character. How I go about doing my characters, and hopefully you enjoy. Those of you who have seen my ArtStation page and so on, I don't know if I've linked it before, but I'm probably going to link it in this video. But I have posted a bunch of my characters up on my ArtStation if you would like to go check those out as well. But the main takeaway of this video is I'm going to show you, how I go about making my characters, and hopefully my workflow maybe can kind of help some of you. Um, now, um, there's a bunch of ways we can go about starting our character, and it's all depending on, of course, you know, the type of character you're making. Um, like, you need to think about things like if you're making an art character, you are starting by, I usually start by the facial stuff because I like to get that facial expression out of the way. Stuff like that. Um, and then the ears, of course. So, you know, there's a bunch of ways you can start with this. I'm going to start by doing an art character. So I'm just going to start by, oh, and by the way, this base model that I'm using here I use it for all my characters. It will be in the description of this video, so you guys can go download that yourself and kind of work as I go the same way off of this mesh. Uh, but I use this for every single one of my characters. A good friend of mine actually put this together for me, and I modified, the base features so that we have a better nose, we have eyes, and a mouth. And this modified version comes with all that already set up for you. So now you can just, after that, you can just customize it to your liking. Actually, yeah, I'll go and make an orc. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll just start by making that. So what we'll do, we'll get the base nose. We'll get the base definition of that nose there. So usually, depending on what kind of orc you're doing, um, I'm basing my characters from Lord of the Rings right now. So this one's gonna be kind of like uh, a mountain orc. So we're gonna want to build this nose up to kind of fit that. Not necessarily like a pig-like nose, but more like it's not really protruding at all. So that's a big takeaway there. And depending on what reference you're using, um, for if you're using a reference at all for your polygonal characters, um, you know, those kinds of things will definitely be different. So what I'm doing now is I'm just simply messing with the extrusion of the faces. I am taking them back, and kind of moving them around, scaling them, and kind of making sure that's the kind of fit that I want for my nose. So I rotate these nostrils in a bit if I want the nostrils, to be out or in more, you know. So, I mean, it's not perfect, but I'm gonna try to get this the best I can. I'm not really going off of anything right now. I'm more or less just kind of making something of my own here, inspired by the films. So, I'll just leave that for now. But what we really need to focus on right now, anyways, is we'll start by getting these ears to make them look more orcish. So I will expand that just a tad, and then I'll also grab this out and kind of push that like so. And then the next thing I'll do is I'll kind of grab that down and do that right there. So now we kind of have a little bit more orcish looking ears there. Not entirely, you know, but to the liking that prefer. And that's kind of what matters here. So, I mean, the next thing we could do is we could start by getting some of the base armor down. So, the big important thing, or the big, yeah, the big important thing here is to make sure that you extrude each piece of your armor. With low poly works like this, you're always going to want to have some depth in your character. And in order to do that with polygonal characters, you need lots of extrusions. Of course, be smart about it, you know, delete what you don't need, delete the vertices you don't need, delete the faces you don't need. But at the same time, keep a consistency of extrusion and also make sure that, you know, you have that depth in your character that really gives it that takeaway. So I'll start by just doing some random armor design here. And, you know, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be something that you can kind of get an idea of what I mean by adding depth to your character. So I'll extrude that a bit. And you can kind of see there, that's kind of what I'm talking about. You'll get and then the thing with armor, if you're doing kind of an armor that's you know a fairly not a, mer a fairly medium-sized armor, maybe I mean it'd probably be best you add layers. Most armor does this, depending on what kind of armor you're trying to model. I mean that's totally up to you, but adding these layers, these kind of layers to your armor. If you can kind of see what I mean, there is like a slit there, for example. Um, it'll add a lot of depth to that as well, which will make your character obviously stand out quite a bit more. So make kind of a backstrap there, and I'll also um, yeah, I'll also grab these shoulders and I'll start adding some shoulder armor, shoulder pads. So get some little shoulder pads there. Another thing that helps is if you're kind of doing more of a dark character, you know, like some kind of evil character, you know. Usually they have spikes, they have some kind of, you know, uh, not extreme designs, but anything like little hump spikes or anything like that. You can always mess with the lines of these faces, or you can also grab the vertices as well, and you can pull those up to kind of create some kind of spike effect. And that way you get kind of like a more evil looking, you know, armor design there. And then the next thing I'll do is I'll simply grab these hands, and I will select the character mesh and just select the or use the pick tool marquee, and also just grab these hands here. Make sure you have your x-axis on all the time. By the way, I forgot to mention that. Not all the time, but it's useful for when you're, you know, making most of your characters. So I recommend keeping that on. So now we got kind of gloves there. Uh, Adds depth to the hands, especially if you have an armor piece already working with your character. It usually ends up being something like you would want in a character like this. So now we'll just add some armor, some kind of gauntlets about midway through the arm, and then we will I'll redo this nose. So I'm not actually going to do kind of a nose that goes inward. Rather, I'll take the nose out of it just so you can kind of see what I mean by well, what I meant by facial extrusions as well. So we'll kind of grab that line there instead of the whole face. We'll drag it out just a tad to kind of create more of a arc in the nose, and at the same time creating more of an orcish nose. And then we'll also grab the back of the hair. Um, take that and then extrude it inwards just a tad, or no, scale it inwards, and then grab it out and kind of do this, and then we'll also extrude it once more, and then kind of create that effect there, and kind of extrude it like so to kind of create a ponytail. And there you have kind of a makeshift orc character so far. We'll do one last thing. We'll kind of grab the feet there, kind of make some boots out of that. So we'll kind of extrude that just a tad, not too much, just slightly. And then we will grab the rest of this body here, and then we'll extrude that slightly as well, if I can grab it. Yep. All right. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so that kind of works. Now we'll simply move on to the texturing part.